And today I'm just going to be telling you basically my story of how I came to realize that media can be anything that we want it to be. And this definitely applies to porn because porn is basically media, right? So I'm just going to kind of go through like my personal story, how I got started in the sex industry, and my background in eco-activism and stuff like that, as well as just different like anecdotes and stuff like that, just to basically show you like how I came to use my blog as a artistic platform for change. So that basically just says everything. That's a picture, actually, I just finished an ISM folio on the Appalachian Trail, which is kind of cool. I really much believe that porn can serve as an artistic platform for political messages, and today we're going to be talking about eco-activist messages. So, what this is, sharing concepts about change, media, and nature, and what this isn't, is good porn versus bad porn debate. So, I just want to make that clear because, like, I realize everyone has some, like, heated stuff when it comes to, like, porn, especially that word is very, like, you know, hot topic. But, I really believe that the issue comes down to creating the media that you want to see in the world. So that's kind of, like, my perspective on it. So, I'm not here to say, like, you know, the porn I make is better than the porn they make or anything like that. I'm just kind of showing you, like, this is how you can make your own message. So, like, whatever you guys think is sexy or cool or whatever, this is, like, one way I found of, like, putting that message out there. Cool. So, yeah, that's basically the structure. Journey I took to realize it, and how I'm going to take that knowledge home, what I do with it, and continue to do, and I'm going to give some other examples of some other sexy ladies that are doing the same thing. So just to introduce you to the concept, I was just going to read a poem of mine that's really favorite. This lady is awesome. If you ever look her up. She does a lot of topless activism around saving the redwood forests. It's really cool. She came out with this documentary called Striptease for the Trees, and she basically goes out to where they're logging, and she'll take off her top and start reading goddess poetry to these like lumberjacks and stuff. And it's not she's actually like created a lot of like attention to the issues that are going out there, and yeah, she's just a cool lady. So she's also a poet, and she publishes poems about her sexual relationship with the earth. So I'm just going to read one of them that I went through, and it's called Bisexual. So this is by Dami Nieto, aka La Tigresa. I think I'm bisexual. Flowers turn me on. I have ego-erotic thoughts. The liquid trickle of the stream flow lapping over the rocks makes my juices flow. My loins are moist soil. My nipples respond to the tiny cupped lips of flower petals. And a flower is really nothing but spread open botanical labia, love lips smiling at the world. A flower is a sexual invitation, luring insect pollination. Transspecies sexuality is what makes your garden grow. Ask Dr. Science if you don't believe me. All of nature arouses me. Soft green moss on the velvet love seat of a fallen tree trunk seduces my skin with the promise of sweet sensation. When I rub my fingertips and buttocks on its yielding fuzzy mat. Delicate blue and purple wildflowers entice me, like little fairy poems printed on flower vellum. And in the center of each one, 5 tiny secret hearts, like a cluster of elfin candy valentines. Within the flower, vulva protected by luscious flower lips. Some blossoms closed, some shamelessly spread open. My own juices begin to trickle, my own labia swelling with desire as I write this. And when I timidly stroke the deep green velveteen of the outer flower cover, it feels like I'm rubbing skin on teensy tiny bad girl buns encased in eensy-weensy velvet panties. And I feel the desire squirt all through my inner folds. Like I haven't felt from an erotic encounter with nature since those apple blossoms seduced me down in Santa Cruz on that spring equinox with their ripening adolescent bud breasts and flower petal skirts on pink and white chiffon. Those naughty bridesmaids. Yes, I still get wet just thinking about them. Some people may be bisexual or into S&M, but I get turned on by the blush of flower flesh after a springtime rain. Is there even a name for this? Bestiality is for sheep, donkeys, German shepherds, and tigers. But for apple blossoms and wildflowers, And what about smooth brown stones and patches of moss? Certain sinuous tree limbs, twisting, twining, smooth and hard-bodied madrone and manzanita? Am I a botanophile? A pansexual? Or just a moist pink mammal, sniffing all the painted, perfumed floral floozies, flirting well outside my species, lusting after all my long-forbidden sisters, hungry to embrace this whole green planet, unable not to taste the nectar of love wherever it finds me. So, I read that poem probably like in 2006, and like I'd never really been able to like articulate very well the relationship that I had with nature. For me, it began at a really young age. I talked to trees on the playground instead of like having friends. I didn't have like imaginary friends. It was kind of like always about the earth. And sexuality kind of became a part of that relationship when I was in my teen years. I lived in Scotland for the first time in a rural area. I had always lived kind of like in the city surrounded by concrete and asphalt, and like always been kind of seeking something different. But when I lived in Scotland, it was kind of like cool because I was in a really rural area like I mentioned, and sometimes I would sneak off to the woods and I would go and masturbate. And it was really awesome because I kind of felt like the whole planet, well not planet, but the area that I was in was participating with me. You know, like I was laying on the ground and the leaves kind of became like a lover's embrace. The wind was kind of like somebody caressing my skin, and it was really awesome. It was just really erotic in a really different way than I had experienced before. I also kind of wanted to mention that this is not like special or strange. We're all kind of connected more than we want to realize or want to admit as a culture. We're kind of taught to like separate ourselves from things that are like natural because it's not civilized or it's dirty. But for me, all those things are kind of connected, including like with sexuality. There's a lot of like correlations between earth, nature, dirt, and sex. But that's just my view on things. So, probably when I was around 17, I graduated from massage school. I kind of got disenchanted with that because it was cool to learn about like human touch and stuff like that, but it was something that was supposed to be a holistic therapy, never really covered the issue of sex. And for me, that was just like kind of hypocritical. I mean, you can't really call yourself a holistic therapy if you're ignoring like the most poignant part of human sexuality. So I kind of did other things. I worked a lot of different jobs, and then I saw the movie called Dangerous Beauty, and it's kind of a cheesy component, but it's kind of cool because it tells you the story about Veronica Franco. I just like that screen cap. It's really funny, but Veronica Franco was a Venetian courtesan, and she was also a poet and like an activist in her day, and she used her political sway. I don't know if you guys know about Venetian courtesans, but they were kind of like prominent members in society, and they had a lot more political sway than most women at the time. So she started a lot of charities and stuff like that. It was just kind of cool to see a movie that portrayed sex work and prostitution in a completely different light. So instead of like, normally we kind of have this idea of the street worker or someone that's desperate for money, and here you have this, the totally opposite side of the story where it's like somebody who has political sway, who's educated, who is using her power as a tool. So it wasn't necessarily that that makes it better, it was just a different perspective, more or less. So I was like, oh, I want to be an escort. This sounds cool. It didn't work out right away. I tried a lot of different methods. I was like online. I was also 18 at the time, so I was pretty naive about stuff. I walked up and down the streets. I tried talking to people, and it didn't really work out. So I kind of took it personal, and I was like, well, I must not be sexy enough to do this, so I might try something else. But then probably about a year later, the offer came to try out working in porn, and I decided, what the heck, why not? It's another job, and it's probably in a safer arena since it's a more controlled environment, etc. So I tried it out. So that's me when I was 19 for a DVD called Naughty Amateurs, which is really crappy. Don't buy it. It's just crappy gonzo porn. But so I started when I was 19 years old. I signed a contract with an agent. I worked in South Florida for companies like Bang Brothers Reality King. It's also known as gonzo porn, which means there's like no storyline. You pretty much just go in, you look like that, and you have sex on camera, and that's pretty much it. My first scene was a solo masturbation scene for Score magazine, and I think I ended up shooting about 8 scenes. And So then it's cool to get paid to get laid, but I got tired of not fitting to the standards. When I started out, I was really concerned about my breasts. I was like, oh, I don't know, because I've always had a lot of insecurities about them. I'm like, oh, I don't think they're perky enough. And I brought this up to my agent before I had even started shooting. But he was like, oh, it's not going to be a problem, blah, blah, blah. And so he got me in, started shooting me and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, oh, there's no work for you. Why is there no work? Oh, well, your breasts are a problem. Did you ever think about breast augmentation? I'm like, no, I brought this up to you before we even got started. And then, so long story short, I was just like, okay, whatever, this just isn't my thing, or I'm just tired of trying to be something that I'm really not. Because I've always, whatever you want to call it, hippie, nature girl, that's just, it's not really me. And it's kind of fun to role play once in a while, I'll admit that. And it's kind of cool to get dressed up, put on makeup, but realistically, day in, day out, it's is this really an image I want to project if it's not really who I am, One thing that attracted me to sex work was just kind of being open and sexual in an open environment. But it's well, if I have to kind of fit into standards that aren't really me, then how's that working out? So, what to do? I was sad. But I still had bills that need to get paid, so I decided to start stripping. And this is where I learned that there are many men out there with a variety of tastes that are frustrated too, because they're watching this and they're like, oh, this isn't what I want. I got asked a lot of questions like, why do all the girls in this club shave? Why don't you have pubic hair? Why does everyone have breast implants? Why don't you? Things like that. So it started opening my mind to the fact that it's okay, this must be an issue with corporations, or this must be an issue with saturating the market, because obviously there's other people out there that think like I do and are looking for a different product. One thing that my agent kind of told me, which was a bunch of bullshit, he was like, oh, girls porn doesn't sell. He's just trying to basically, they make money off of you doing as many scenes as possible, and the more limitations that you'll go for, the more they get paid, et cetera, et cetera. So anyways, I knew there had to be alternatives, so I started searching the net. Dear Google, is there any such thing as sensual artistic porn? I know there has to be. And I found a lot of cool stuff. I found a few websites that were based in Australia, and they had a completely different perspective on pornography than I was used to seeing. First one was I Shot Myself, where models shoot/direct themselves in both film and photos and theme. So this is really cool. It's an internationally based site. They're based in Australia, but they take submissions from all over the planet, from all different kinds of people. I've seen people from Russia to Africa to the Philippines on their site. So they're mostly based in Australia, and so they're able to get a lot more models locally, but they accept submissions from all over the world. So it's kind of cool. It's basically any body type, any of that stuff. But they basically the whole stressing point is art. Make it something that's different. Have a theme, have a concept. Next one I found was I Feel Myself, which is supposedly dedicated to the female orgasm. And this is a really cool site because they basically put the model in a room. You have a mirror over the bed, and they shoot into the mirror, and then they have different cameras around with different angles and stuff like that. So there's no director in there directing you. You're just basically told to go in there and masturbate. And I don't know, it's kind of cool because they have a lot of high quality equipment, so if somebody's not really loud per se, they can catch their breathing and stuff like that, or just even the sounds of them touching their body. So they have high quality mic equipment that basically captures the erotic experience that that person's going through. And then the other one is Beautiful Agony, which is really cool because it's a non-nude erotic site, all about your O face. They basically just tell you to go set up a camera over your face, or maybe do it standing up, however is comfortable for you. But the idea is make it non-nude, so it's just about your face. And then they do what's kind of called a confessions afterwards, and it's an interview. And they ask you kind of all your dirty secrets and stuff like that. And it's kind of cool to listen to people because everybody kind of comes up with similar stuff. And the last one I found is Abby Winters, which was an all-natural Australian Girls Next Door and occasional horny backpacker with me. They also, what I really liked about them is that they shot their models without makeup. They made a point to say no makeup. And also they try to shoot them in their own clothes. So they're not actually like dressing you up or anything, if that makes sense. I Feel Myself does that as well. So they dress you up in your